All right, well, let's get started this evening. Welcome everyone to our third quarterly chat with the counselor. We're so happy you are able to join us this evening. So we're going to go ahead and get started. First, we'd like to share a little bit of information about our story here at Outreach. We've been in the community for almost 50 years now, and we really have a strong mission to provide affordable and accessible counseling, connection, education, and care to children, youth, and families in the South Hills and the greater South Hills region. As you can see, our mission our vision is we want every children, teen, and family in the communities we serve to thrive. So that's really our mission here at Outreach. My name is Maggie. I will be one of the facilitators this evening. I'm a nationally certified counselor, and I am also the program manager here at Outreach. So I really have a lot of experience and I'm passionate working with teens and families. I used to be a school counselor and now I have transitioned into the outpatient world. And I really try to meet families where they're at and help them get to where they want to go. So really excited to be here this evening. Caitlin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Caitlin Campbell. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I'm also the new clinical director here at Outreach. I have a lot of experience working with teens, specifically in the school setting, working within different districts across Allegheny and Washington County. And I also have worked in home with families to help support the family unit, and also have my certification in yoga training. So I like to bring that into the clinical world as well. And I'm really excited to be here tonight.
Awesome. And then we are really lucky to have a teen guest here with us tonight. Madeline, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Madeline Jarina, and I'm a new member of the Youth Advocacy Committee, which is a part of Outreach. I'm 19 years old, and I'm really passionate about mental health, and I'm looking forward to being here tonight and working with the committee to make a positive impact on our community. So thanks for coming, everyone.
Thanks so much for joining us too, Madeline. We really appreciate your perspective on this topic. So before we really dive into the content that we have put together this evening, I'd like to just talk a little bit about our discussion guidelines. You can read them here. A couple that I would like to point out is we really encourage involvement tonight. So there will be different opportunities for Q&A, one in the middle of our content, and then a second opportunity as we wrap up our webinar, as well as a couple different poll opportunities. This really allows everyone to feel heard, as well as gives us a little bit of information about what you really want to learn during this webinar. So I don't know, let's kind of kick it off here with our first poll. We would love to know who is joining us this evening. So on your screen here, you can answer our question that we have. Are you a supporter program member, a community parent, a curious parent in search of info, or a counseling professional? So feel free to choose an answer now. All right, hopefully everyone is able to see this. It looks like you may be able to and you may not. I'm not quite sure here on my end. All right. Oh, wonderful. So it looks like we have some supporter program members, a community parent. Wonderful. That's good. That's good information to know. A couple other discussion guidelines that I just want to highlight is there are limits to confidentiality. It is our hope that what we say in this webinar stays here. However, we cannot make any guarantees, so please just be mindful of that. And as counselors, we are mandated reporters. So that's just another area that I like to highlight, but we're really excited for this topic and looking forward to getting started. So let's keep going. Tonight's chat is all about perception is not reality. So we'll be diving into some of the data around teens' mental health, around social media usage. The second part of our webinar tonight is going to be providing strategies and insight for parents to help their children navigate this fear safely and in a way that can hopefully encourage connection and bonding with parent and child, as well as friends and just being smart when it comes to social media usage. So I'd like to kind of start with a discussion around this photo here. I think it highlights that social media is complex and there is different sides to social media. I think social media isn't all bad. There's a lot of positives to being on social media. It can encourage connection. It's part of our world. So I think there has to be an acceptance piece. And there are, I think, healthy ways that we can try to navigate social media and the different platforms out there. Madeline, you're a teen. What does this image look like to you?
Well, for me, when I look at it, the first thing I notice is like even the part of the girl's face that's colored in, she still doesn't look very happy. So that coupled with one of the little quotes around the picture says all for the gram, it's like it just kind of demonstrates that people will kind of put on a face or whatever to post on Instagram, especially. It's just a moment in time and it really doesn't capture everything. So and also just all of the different like adjectives and comparison words that there's the one over here is like I wish I was like her. It's like I can't tell you how many times that I've thought that myself, just looking at other people's social media when really you're only looking at the highlights. And you know, they could be having a miserable time and then someone says, okay, let's get a group picture. Everyone smiles for a second and then it's gone. You know, I've heard about experiences where people will say, yeah, that happened, you know, so it's not as bright and cheery as it looks all the time.
I really think this image highlights perception is not reality. Social media is part of our reality, but what we're seeing on social media platforms, especially Instagram, maybe TikTok, Facebook, it's normally the highlights of someone's life. These are moments in time. It's not the full day. So a lot of the times I don't think we're getting the full picture, but social media tends to do a good job of not really in the moment allowing us to remember that. You still are seeing and digesting that type of content. So that's, I think, something that we're going to discuss here tonight is how to take a pretty holistic approach when looking at social media and what are some strategies that we can use to try to find that balance and ground ourselves and remember what is realistic and helpful. So let's keep going here with some data. So a 2022 study showed that in the United States, the most popular social media platforms for teenagers are YouTube takes that top spot there at 95%, followed by TikTok, which I am not surprised. I know that's more of a newer platform in the last couple years. And then Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook makes the top 5, but is in that 5th spot there, which is interesting because I think for parents, this might look a lot different if this study was taking into consideration what platforms parents or adults use the most. But Caitlin, Madeline, is this surprising to you, this data? Is it on point? Like, what are your thoughts?
I know that I was very surprised to see YouTube be the #1 app, and so much so it's 95%, because I just have never thought of that really as a social media platform for kids to engage and interact. But then you think about all the commenting that can happen, the subscribing that can happen, the likes that can happen. So big surprise. Definitely not surprised by Facebook being down at the bottom, because
Mm.
that was cool when I was in high school. So I'm sure it's not cool now.
That's funny.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not that surprised at YouTube being in the number one spot, just because especially in the last couple years, it's really grown in popularity just because I think of how diverse the content on there is, and like you can be very specific about what you're looking for. You can see gaming content,
Mhm.
movie reviews, like really anything you can think of. You can be very specific about what you want, and I think people really appreciate that. And so I'm not surprised. I'm also not surprised about TikTok. And yeah, I honestly don't know many people my age who have a Facebook.
Mhm.
So yeah, not shocked at that being at only 32%.
Mhm. Mhm. I think this data is really good to know though and be aware of, because yes, I think YouTube is such a great tool, like how to fix things, movie reviews, things like that. But when I hear you say, Madeline, you can really find anything on YouTube, I think, oh boy, there must be access to a lot that maybe young eyes shouldn't or aren't ready to see and to experience. So it's I think it's good to know how accessible and frequent these top 5 or top 4 apps are really being used with teens. Because if we're aware, then we're a lot easier. We're more capable to then try to use them in smart ways. Also, with social media comes that screen time usage. How much time are we spending looking at these screens, and what are we doing on there? So it looks like here tweens spend around 4 to 5 hours daily on their screens, with teens spending more time, around 7 to 8 hours daily on their screens. That's like a whole work day.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Um, what do we think about this, Caitlin? Really trying to, from a more like clinical point of view.
Yeah, I mean, I know that when I first saw that, I thought, when is this actually happening, and
Mhm.
how is that affecting their mental and physical health? So I'm assuming that 7.5 to 8 hours is not happening during their school day. I would find that to be safe to assume that it's not at least back to back. So then I
Mhm.
start wondering, I know a lot of teens who have a hard time putting that phone away to go to sleep, and they're on it as they're falling asleep, and they're looking at the screen, and they're watching until they doze off. And I know the research is coming out about how much of an impact that has on your sleep and your ability to really shut down your brain to go to sleep. And so I really could see that that could have a very big impact long term on kids' physical and mental health ultimately.
And I do talk about sleep hygiene with a lot of my clients, and it is exactly what they're reporting most of the time. I am not able to fall asleep. And what are you doing? I'm on my phone.
Mhm.
Um, so it's definitely a reality, I think, for a lot of teens. And it's not placing blame, because these social media in design, I think, with the algorithm, what's that word?
Algorithm.
Algorithm. A long day. With the algorithm and just the content, I think it can be addicting in a sense, for a certain type of person. So Madeline, have you had any personal experiences or experiences with friends that have hinted to that? Like it is hard to stop using social media, or do you feel like sleep hygiene normally is impacted or social um, implications occur?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can say from personal experience that I mean, like you were saying, as these algorithms get more and more advanced, they know exactly what you want to what you want to see. And so
Mhm.
I think, when you're winding down, getting ready to go to bed, it's it's very easy to just keep on doing that because at least for me personally, it's more of a mindless way to kind of shut down. Like people say, "Oh, why can't you just read a book?" Well, scrolling through TikTok takes a lot less brain power, so it's just a lot it's just the more desirable option so that you don't have to, like it sounds a little bit ridiculous, but, like, you don't have to work so hard to, like
Mhm.
to get some to enjoy yourself before you fall asleep, so, yeah, I mean, it can be hard, and I think too, the social implications, it's a very easy way to escape social situations as well. So when you're
Mhm.
you're with friends, like, there's kind of maybe there's a moment of awkward silence, no one knows what to say, everyone just pulls out their phone, and it's,
Mhm.
like, kind of an easy way to just avoid that awkward silence, but in reality, it can be really harmful because, then people aren't talking to each other, and humans are wired for connection, and that connection doesn't come from staring at a screen, so, yeah, the impact of social media is huge, especially for teenagers.
Yeah. So this is what the data is really telling us. I wonder with who's joining us this evening, what social media, let's do another poll. What social media are you using, or are your kiddos seeming to be using a lot? So okay, so yeah, are most used by your children or teens. So feel free to take a second. There's a couple other options on here, including WhatsApp. So that's Madeline, correct me if I'm wrong, but from my knowledge, that is a kind of like universal messaging platform that can be used. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat, TikTok. Those were the other five that we discussed. So feel free to take a second to answer that. All right. Let's see here.
Pretty
Very
well divided.
interesting. Yes, yes. And isn't that interesting? Like, because it shows that there's a lot of apps that have a lot of power and
Mhm.
accessibility. So very, very cool. All right.
So this slide is talking about two things. How teens are actually feeling about their social media, and then what negative side effects they might have experienced or um, felt while using social media. So um, the first half of the slide shows that the US teens, 45% really did not see an effect at all. And I've been wondering about that one. Like, how was that question asked? Was it, what kind of effects are there on you? And is it good or is it bad? Or was it just kind of like one or the other? And they said, well, it's not good, it's not bad. So
Mhm.
I am kind of curious about what that really means. But there was a chunk there that did see social media as mostly negative. And I'm wondering if anyone on our panel is surprised by that result.
Mhm.
No.
Madeline shaking her head
Yeah.
no.
So
Oh,
then
not surprised.
on the other side of it is the main reasons for a negative effect of social media. And the top one really didn't surprise me so much, again, because of my work with the teen population, is the feelings of being bullied or people spreading rumors, People taking screenshots and sending them around and things like that have been a pretty big topic of conversation, especially when I was in all of those school situations. So I'm not very surprised by that one, but I would love to hear from you all what you think about these other options that are listed.
Well, I definitely think that I didn't experience that much of the bullying or the rumor spreading, at least like I haven't now, but I do know of like maybe like a couple people who have experienced something like that, especially when you were saying like the screenshotting other people's like teens love to screenshot someone else's post and send it to somebody else with like a caption like, "Oh my God, is this person serious?" Like I've witnessed, not witnessed, but like I've heard about that before. Um, but I guess just because of the position I'm in, I didn't know how prevalent it really was, like how many people are actually experiencing it just from my side of things.
I really look at the second negative effect of social media harms relationships or in-person contact. If we're thinking about how frequently the daily screen time is and um, what the bullying and rumor spreading that can sometimes occur on it, it makes me think, boy, do we, um, is there seem to be a need for that just in-person communication, those social skills of talking and saying hi to somebody and engaging um, for real with somebody without a phone in hand. Or I mean, we all go on elevators and it's a lot of people, including myself, to, if I feel awkward, pull out my phone. It seems like sometimes it's used as a safety tool in a sense, to avoid uncomfortable or awkward situations. And to be honest, I think I have seen that with teens and tweens. There definitely seems to be a hesitation to picking up the phone and calling somebody. There seems to be an increase in feeling anxiety in social situations that I wasn't seeing when I first started out as a school counselor. So that is, I don't think I'm surprised by the number, but I think that's something that I think is really real, and have experienced myself, as well as see happening around me and with teens. So yeah.
Yeah, I did just want to put, oh, go ahead.
No, go for it. We have a second.
Okay. I was just going to say it is kind of surprising to hear that teens are aware of the fact that it is causing struggles with in-person contact and connection. So that also really gives you hope, right? Like they see that it's not something that's a great impact on their day-to-day interactions. So what a great place to kind of help and support when they're already noticing that it doesn't feel the best. So that gives me some hope in all of this.
It's such a good point. It's so true. And really, those skills are so important when applying for jobs and for a lot of the work that you do as an adult. You have to go to the bank. You have to make those hard calls to the insurance people, right? Like
Call the doctor.
yeah, exactly. So I think it's definitely a skill that is needed, and I'm glad that they're recognizing that, because once there's awareness, there's a path for change. So we are halfway through our webinar this evening, and we would love to pause and see if there's any comments or questions that anyone has so far on our topic. So if you have one, feel free to put your comment or question in the chat feature, and we will be made aware if anything comes through. We'd be happy to answer. we'll give it here a couple more seconds and then we'll keep going. All righty. So now we're going to dive deeper into the signs that social media may be affecting your mental health. Actually, I do see one Q&A. Oh, I'm so sorry. How do I get this way? Mary, do you mind reading us the questions just to make sure?
I can read them.
Sure.
I'm able
Okay.
to see them if you want. Oh, you good? Okay.
Do doctors ask teens about screen use is one question, if we know that answer. And perhaps you will address this later in the presentation. However, what data exists on the known effects of social media usage?
Well, we will be addressing the second question now. And to be honest, I am not sure if doctors assess social media usage at like a
Visit.
wellness visit. Yeah.
I will say, to my knowledge, they do not. Madeline, you might know better. Have you had a doctor ever ask you about how often you're on social media?
I personally have, yeah. I think more and more of them are starting to incorporate that because they're realizing like how much of an effect it really does have. So in my experience, yeah.
That's great.
That is awesome to hear. I'm surprised to hear
Me
that,
too.
but I'm happy. that is again another area of hope.
Yes.
that we are all working together because physical and mental health are so interconnected. And one of the effects of social media usage on mental health is that feeling here of anxiety, depression, and loneliness. So I think it's definitely a question that should be asked at visits because it can be impacting mental health for sure. Here are some of the other effects that social media usage can have on a teen's mental health. It can distract you from work, which is, I know I've experienced that one. And do any of these other signs really stand out to you, Madeline, on a personal level?
Yes. I've experienced almost all of these. The one that really stands out to me is using it to escape bad emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what's really interesting is like bad is in quotations, like
Mm-hmm.
feeling every emotion, whether it's unpleasant, pleasant, whatever, is important. And of course, you don't want to spiral into it, but when you use something like social media to escape those emotions, then from personal experience, I can tell you, like it just builds and builds and builds. And then one day you just explode and it's too much. But it can be so hard to, like, especially late at night when you're getting ready to go to bed. And let's say, you're worried about tomorrow, you have a test, you have something going on. It's so much easier to just keep scrolling on social media rather than face the feelings of anxiety and um, the fear of failing a test or whatever it may be. It's just so much easier to get that little like dopamine rush rather than feel those feelings. And I feel like it's totally understandable. Like, of course you'd want to do that because yeah, it just makes sense to me. And also the spending more time online than with family and friends. I've definitely witnessed that in my own household. And it's kind of been like a topic of, you know, there have been arguments about it because it's just so hard to like get off of the phone, period, when you're eating. Like someone always has it out. So yeah, I've experienced that in my own family as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think we as clinicians can see that I wouldn't say it's just kids though, that we as humans have really started to use our devices to avoid things that we don't want to do, don't feel comfortable experiencing. And then that can really create those feelings of anxiety, depression, maybe feeling lonely if you're looking at someone that appears to have things that you don't have, or you put off work for so long, now you're extremely anxious about getting things done, or maybe your work has suffered, and it can really spiral. And I think it's important as we speak as adults that this doesn't just affect our teens. And so being aware of our own experiences with all of this can make it a lot easier to have the conversations with the teens, as if you notice any of these warning signs in your children, but to be aware yourself so that you can ask the questions and kind of relate, have some empathy in this whole experience.
Mhm, mhm. So yeah, what do we do? How do we help our teens when using social media? That is what we're going to really target here next. So strategies to really help navigate the social media sphere safely. I think first it's important to highlight that social media can be a good thing. It is, like I said, and I think I just really want us all to acknowledge is it's a huge part of our lives and it's not going away. And as much as we can think purposefully and use social media intentionally in ways that are going to connect us together, to find helpful information, and to use in a way that's going to encourage connection and collaboration, then that's a win. That's a win. I think it's also really important when saying that to remember that limits really are important. We have assessed that it is not easy to stop using social media. It is easy to use because it doesn't use a lot of brain power. It can help in uncomfortable situations, and it is a avoidant coping mechanism that we have access to and that we use. So, one study suggests limiting social media usage to 30 minutes a day. That seems a little unrealistic to me, especially taking into consideration that the daily screen time is around 7 to 8 hours a day. But how do we create healthy limits and boundaries around social media for ourselves as adults, as well as for our children and teens in our families? Um, any thoughts? Any thoughts, Caitlin?
One thing that I try to remind parents that I work with of their, like the teens parents that I work with, is that our teens' brains are not fully developed, and that prefrontal cortex that helps you make good decisions and have impulse control is not developed yet, and it's pretty much the last thing that gets developed. So these kids have very important tools in their hands that they could make some not great decisions on because their brains aren't equipped to help them get there. So having these open conversations with the kids about safety, things that you want to put out there, trying to set those limits about you don't need to be on that 24/7 because you have homework or whatever, and so I just really think it's important to remember that big piece about development in social media use and screen time, that their brains aren't always able to really make the best choice. So it's really important as the caregivers or the adults in the situation that we try to protect them as much as we can by setting limits.
It's a really good point to kind of think from that developmental mindset, because I think it offers some really great reasons as to why I should be setting limits, and hopefully then it can create some healthy habits about screen time limits and usage like that. Another tip or trick can be slowly granting freedom in an increased way. So again, that's developmentally appropriate for however old your children are. Again, this is definitely going to be different for each family and depending upon a family's values and priorities. But I think it's important to remember that this is something we ultimately purchase a lot of the times, unless it's gifted to us or schools have a budget for it. A lot of the times technology is, or a phone is given to a child. So I think it's important to be mindful of when you think that time is right, and have a plan in place about how those conversations are going to go, and maybe from the get-go, how to set those healthy boundaries and limits. And ultimately, I love what this sentence has at the end of it, which is we need to re-engage. So what are some fun ways that the family can put their phones down and do a family activity that doesn't involve screens? Maybe go on a family walk, or make it a competition who can use their phone for the least amount of time, and maybe they win a prize or get to pick the next fun family event that is without a phone. I think we do need to remember that children and teens' brains are not fully developed, and there's a research out there to show that a lot of screen time and being on social media is not helping. So I think it's always a balancing act that we're trying to find. Caitlin, do you want to kind of kick this slide off?
Sure. Yeah. And I kind of jumped ahead a little bit because I do get so excited thinking about the brain. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. But how to help navigate social media safely is making sure that you are familiar with the technology that your child or teen is using. So if your kid has a TikTok, download a TikTok, see how it works, see what kinds of ways you can message each other, or things that can be done either in front of you or behind the scenes. I think it's really important to just have an understanding of how communication really works and what information your child will be getting if they're using that app. We talked already about that digital safety, and that's where my brain was thinking about that. What is the word? Thinking without doing without thinking, impulse control.
Impulse
Yes.
control.
Important to remind your teens that it's very important to think, take a breath, put your phone down before you respond or react in a moment, because our digital footprint does not disappear. And that is something, like I was saying, that these kids have a tool in their hand that can follow them around for the rest of their lives. And it's important that we're, putting that information out to kids to help them understand, even if they can't quite grasp what that means, the conversation's important to have. And then being a good role model. They're always watching. They're watching how we use social media, how we interact with people online. And it's pretty difficult to tell someone to put something away when you have it in your hand too, right? And I'm guilty of it myself. I say it to all of my clients, like, it is hard. It's very hard. But I think just being honest about it is the best way to start that conversation.
I think so. Yeah, I definitely think that is so true. And I'm wondering if we want to end here with our last poll, doing a little fun activity, right? Like how much time are we spending on our phones? If you have a quick second, and if you are interested in participating in our activity, how much time do you think your children or child spend on social media each day?
Or ask yourself, how much time are you spending on social media? Because my screen time report embarrassed me last night when I looked at it. It was higher than I anticipated.
Oop. I'm looking at mine now.
Well, I think it's like an average of a week, right? Or is it day by day?
Mine says daily average.
Okay.
And
Mine too.
so yeah, let's see. 2 to 5 hours, 6 to 8. That seems to be fairly consistent with
Yep.
with the data.
Yep.
Very fun. And then lastly, I think it's really great to like we're saying, just to have open conversations about social media and really let your teen know that you are there for them. Yes, uncomfortable things can happen on social media. And I think it's so great and comforting to a teen to know, okay, this is really embarrassing, or I messed up, I shouldn't have posted that. But to have your support through navigating that is going to be a lot more helpful than them feeling scared or nervous and just not showing you what's truly going on in their social media realm. Madeline, I'm wondering, with these strategies as a teen, did your parents utilize any of these effectively, or is there one that stands out to you like, oh, I wish this was something that my family did more of or less of? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think that my parents did a really good job of talking to us about digital safety.
Mhm.
Um, we were very aware of that. Like, you know, I mean, the first phone I had was not an iPhone. It was like a little, I don't even know what it was called, but a little phone where you could slide out the keyboard. Like it wasn't even a
Oh yeah.
an
The
iPhone.
Glide or something, an Envy.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But I didn't get a phone, like an actual phone, until high school, and I think like the first conversation we had was about digital safety. So I think they did that really well. Um, I think recently they've gotten better at the other three. Like
Mhm.
they are open to learning more about TikTok, YouTube, whatever. Um, and they're they've been pretty good at like putting their phones away during dinner too, to be good role models, and have been very um open and willing to, they've said like, if you have any problems, come to us, like we're here to help. And I
Mhm.
think that last one is so important. Like I would argue probably the most important one of all, because if your child doesn't feel comfortable coming to you, that just, they're losing a support system there, and it just keeps everyone in the know, and it's just so helpful, and the teens will feel less alone, and
Mhm.
they'll be more willing to talk about how they screwed up and what happened, and it's just, it's a win for everybody. So I always think that the last, you know making sure your teens know that it's okay if you come to them, I think having that conversation is so important.
Mhm. Mhm. And I think too, as parents now feeling hopefully more informed about the warning signs or the risk factors of social media usage, you are now aware and feel like you have, you're armed with the information to see if your teen is using social media in a way that is developmentally appropriate or um, is concerning. And then having those conversations and acknowledging what's going on can be really helpful and hopefully preventative in nature, to help them navigate it in a healthier way, or get support that they need. All right. So we're going to end here with the last Q&A. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to put them in the chat now. We have around 1 minute before we're going to wrap up here, but again, happy to answer what we can. All right, we're going to continue moving on here. If any questions come through, we will be able to see them and can respond by email communication. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this evening. If you are a part of the supporter program, thank you for being here. And if you aren't, there are still opportunities to join. You can feel free to scan the QR code and you'll be taken to more information on the program, and can see if it is a good fit for you and your family, or if you're a community member and would like to support other parents in the community, because parenting is hard and we are here. This program is created to help. So again, thank you so much. If you want to contact us, there is our information, our website, our email. And we would love to hear from you. All righty. Well, thank you again. Hope everybody stays warm and enjoys the rest of their night. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you all.